Welcome to GovExec Daily, where we bring you the federal stories that really matter. It's May 14th, 2021. I'm Adam Butler. Ever since the 2010 Telework Enhancement Act was passed, agencies have been slowly establishing policies on eligibility for telework participation. But as we all know, the COVID-19 pandemic pushed all these efforts into overdrive. Now agency leaders are forced with an even bigger challenge: how to best engage employees digitally and how to slowly start to integrate staff back into the office when the time comes. Dr. John Kotter is the Executive Chairman of Kotter, Inc., and a best-selling author of the upcoming book, Change: How Agencies Achieve Hard-to-Imagine Results in Uncertain and Volatile Times. He joins me to discuss why agencies should not treat post-pandemic telework the same way they treated pre-pandemic telework, right after a message from our sponsor, Salesforce.
We live in an always-on world that creates demands for better experiences and interactions with government at all levels. For the public sector to best deliver on its mission, agencies and their employees need IT systems that provide analytical insights to drive decisions, improve work process effectiveness, and provide the best experience for their constituents. With Salesforce, you can rapidly transform the way you deliver government services through capabilities, solutions, and products that flex and scale to meet every need. Learn more about how Salesforce can help your agency adopt the capabilities you need to improve mission impact at salesforce.com/government.
As we all know, the COVID-19 pandemic pushed the efforts of telework into overdrive. But now agency leaders are forced with a real challenge: how to best engage employees through telework and how to slowly start to integrate staff back into the office when the time comes. Dr. John Kotter is the Executive Chairman of Kotter, Inc., a best-selling author and the author of the upcoming book, Change: How Agencies Achieve Hard-to-Imagine Results in Uncertain and Volatile Times. John, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Adam. It's a pleasure.
So let's jump right into this. Telework is a thing now. We've done on this program quite a few shows about teleworking. I think it's time to get sort of to the next level of this conversation, because it's not about whether we're going to telework. I think we're at the point where most agencies understands that the world has changed, right? I want to ask you, why do you feel agencies should not treat post-pandemic telework the same way they treated pre-pandemic telework?
Because the whole telework infrastructure has changed. I mean, the ease with which it can be done in a lot of places, and people's attitudes. A lot of people who didn't want to even think about telework before have discovered, hey, this is kind of interesting. Yeah. But you've got the opposite too. You've got people who are into what is called Zoom fatigue. And the thought that they're going to be teleworking forever sends them into a kind of a survive mode. So it's a very different situation today. And it's got to be approached that way. And it's going to evolve, Adam. I mean, it's not like we're going to make one decision sometime in the next few months and it's going to lock in a new normal that's going to stay that way.
Right.
I mean, if there's any single fundamental fact that's affecting life on Earth, it's the rate of change is going up, the amount of change is going up, the uncertainty is going up, the speed is going up, and we've got to learn to get a lot better at adapting to it in an agile, smart way to serve our mission.
Yeah, you mentioned Zoom fatigue, which I think is really interesting, right? Because we always talk about this from the point of view of, worried about illness, worried about getting sick, so I don't want to go to work. I have to telework. We don't think about it from the perspective of, I've been sitting in the house for months and months, 15 months, I'm ready to get back, but the agency may not be ready to get back to full capacity. What would you say to people or to managers that are, saying, okay, we're ready to get back to 25% capacity, 50% capacity, but I may have more employees or more staff that are willing to come back that I'm ready for?
I am saying to managers on a regular basis now, that they have got to recognize this is a big deal, the decisions that they're making and how they're executing these decisions. Because best case is they find the opportunities. You don't want to just go back and do things in a higher tech way that you used to. You've got an opportunity here to do things better than before, okay? Through technology and changing not only where you work, but how you work. And that's the way, the attitude. So think opportunity and watch out for the threats. There are people who are going to, if you tell them you have to telework, they're going to mentally freak out. That's just, and don't blame them. They're just being human. So thinking this through, this is a complex change.
Yeah.
And it's got to be thought through and executed very well.
You know, I imagine flexibility is probably the key, right? You know, one thing my wife and I were talking about is childcare, especially during the summer. You know, it's not necessarily, that sheer I don't want to go back to the office. Is what do we do with our son while we're at the office during the summer? Because a summer program may move differently than a government agency or a place of work, right? So do you believe that flexibility is the move that is, okay, this person may be able to work 2 days, 3 days out of the week as opposed to 5, or staying at home the entire time?
I think in general, flexibility, which allows you to adapt to unique circumstances like yours, and yours is hardly unique. I mean, in the sense that there are a lot of people like you right now, is increasingly becoming important everywhere, and certainly in the federal space. You've got to be thinking anything that's rigid, this is the way we do it, is a reflection of the past and is not in touch with the times, and certainly is the future.
Yeah, because again, it's a concern, and when I speak to parents out there, because the world changed dramatically, and we can't force a school to do a certain thing. You certainly can't force an independent, a company like, again, a summer camp or a daycare or whatever. And then again, it's different for children. Children aren't, being vaccinated. Adults are, so it's so much to think about when we, talk about integrating people back into the workplace,
Yeah. And it's so much to think about that what I'm telling CEOs and heads of government agencies is don't be naive, don't be narcissistic, guys. Come on. You can't figure this out by yourself. You're not smart enough. There are too many variables, et cetera. You need help. You need help from as many people as possible who will be willing to step forward and help you think about all the contingencies and the various ways you can handle your situation and other situations. Mobilize more leadership from more people to handle this changing situation.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, if you do that, you're practicing, you're building a new muscle, or you're increasing your muscle that is going to be increasingly important in the future.
Yeah.
Which is the notion that, we had a lot of change in this last year and a change back coming up, and then it'll all settle down. Those aren't the facts. I mean, if you go back 150 years, things have been slowly speeding up, and who knows what might hit us next year or the year after.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a really great point, because I think some of us are thinking, when we talk about telework, we're thinking about it in a bit of the short term. Right. Now, things are starting to clear up. Dr. Fauci and other medical experts say that, this could be a yearly thing. We could have, COVID winters, where, we may have to start teleworking again. So again, that flexibility piece, I think, is a big part of it. And I think that's, like you said, is how could you determine what's going to happen in December?
Yeah, you got it, Adam. You got it.
So let me ask you, to get back to a short-term question, what do you think the workplace will look like when people start to go back to work, but also have, let's say, half of a staff teleworking? What do you think a workplace looks like?
I've heard, gosh, it seems like 50 different opinions on that in the last month. It's hard to pick up a newspaper without some new opinion. Mm-hmm. And I'm not convinced we know yet at this point, Adam. I think besides some general principles, we've got, well, your flexible principle is a good one. Mm-hmm. We're going to have to be more flexible, more adaptive, more agile, quicker to be able to make changes when new things come up. Mm-hmm. This is clear, but exactly when we get down to real estate decisions and you know, what kind of offices and who stays and who comes, it's very difficult to make predictions on that right now. Right. Your best bet is to get your best people, you know, people like yourself and your colleagues on your side in helping you think this stuff through, and then helping you execute it because they want to, as opposed they think they're somebody's, you know, got a heel on their head for the latest round of how we work and where we work.
Yeah. You know, it is a difficult thing to imagine, you know, because we've been used to the workplace being in a certain way. And I know in conversations we've had in the past on this show, the subject that comes up is, okay, how do we regain that camaraderie that we usually have in the workplace that we've had it over the past year or so. Zoom meetings, people get creative on Zoom parties and things like that. But let's just be honest, it doesn't replace water cooler talk. It doesn't replace being able to bounce ideas off of a colleague while you're sitting in office, you know. But I think you make a great point that how could we possibly know what that's going to look like? So do you think that, you know, along with being flexible, do you think that managers need to be more creative than they've ever been in order to create that atmosphere?
Absolutely. They need to be more opportunity focused, more creative, more innovative, more open to innovation, more open to ideas from the workforce, and more agile and adaptive with respect to this and lots of other issues. And again, there is an upside here. It's not all just problems. We do this right, and we get two benefits. One is getting back into a new normal has less stresses and strains and creates less problems for people like yourself and your family. And two, the mere fact of doing the change well, again, is building that muscle, which we're going to need for who knows what gets thrown at us next year and the year after that and the year after that. That's just the way life on Earth is going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. One last question before I let you go. And thank you so much for doing this. It's been a great conversation. When we think about the workplace, it's forever changed, right? Like do you believe that like it's forever changed in that, as you just said, instead of looking at it as a negative and people working at home, not, taking advantage of the fact that they're at home, whatever people may feel. Do you feel like you would tell managers, look at this as an upside, be creative, and find ways to utilize people in their home space as opposed to punishing people for not being able to come into the office?
You've got to find ways to get the best out of your people, or you're just not going to be able to fulfill your mission. There's no question about that. And if people are struggling because you put them in a position where they can't handle their family issues and their work issues, or they're zoomed out or whatever, that's no good. Yeah. So, but think opportunity, think how can we take these changes and decisions that we're going to have to make over the next 6 months and turn them into a better place to work a stronger output for our mission than we had before, because it is possible. I've been studying this kind of thing for decades now, in a slower moving world. Now it's just more relevant because things are speeded up.
Yeah, definitely. Again, thank you so much for doing this. This is this is an ever evolving conversation, but an important one, because we talk about the new normal, whatever that means. This is definitely a part of it. John, thank you so much.
And any of your listeners that have questions, they can actually reach me at Kottering, KOTTERINC.com. And that's a site that has lots of free, interesting stuff associated with this on it. And I've got a new book coming out in a couple of weeks called Change, which might have an idea or two. But seriously, send in your questions. If I can find the time, I'll answer them.
And you're an excellent resource. Definitely.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for joining me.
My pleasure.
Thanks for listening to GovExec Daily. Our show is hosted and produced by me, Adam Butler. I'd like to thank Dr. John Kotter for joining the program. Our music is the song Signals by Catfish Dance. Be sure to rate and review and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can email us any feedback at podcast@govexec.com or hit us up on Twitter @govexec. We'd love to hear from you. Now, stay tuned for a message from our sponsor, Salesforce.
Hello and welcome. I'm Juliette Van Wagenen, editor of branded content for Government Executive Media Group's Studio 2G, and I'm sitting down today with Chris Radich, Vice President of Digital Strategy at Salesforce. Chris is going to share his insights into the growing world of cloud services, why agencies need to plan modernization efforts effectively in order to ensure they can get the most out of their investments, and how Salesforce can play a role in creating robust transformation strategies. Chris, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Let's get right into it. Why is it more important than ever that agencies look at modernizing their legacy IT systems?
Well, you look back in time and there was always this digital dilemma within government. There's a variety of reasons. I studied it in my previous role, wrote a report on the state of federal IT, but it feels different this time. It feels like COVID-19 has really been the number one catalyst that we've ever seen in terms of IT modernization, or even more broadly, digital transformation. And it's an exciting time to be an IT leader, to be a mission leader, because it's allowed for that change to happen more naturally. The challenge across government has always been some of the approvals, some of the compliance, maybe even bureaucracy. And COVID has changed the game from my perspective.
As citizens and employees are both looking for more digital experiences, where should agencies be focusing their energies?
When you think of digital experience, it's such a broad priority. And it is morphed into this human-centered design or customer experience priority. But you really have to narrow the aperture to become effective in driving results here. And the way I would describe it is you need to focus specifically on customer service and engagement, not just CX and human-centered design. And this includes projects that can be implemented quickly, such as contact centers, single front door portals, and digital engagement channels.
Great. And so how can Salesforce specifically help agencies to enable wholesale enterprise digital transformation and include, tools and services like those that you mentioned?
Well, our whole company's principle at Salesforce has always been to focus 100% of our energy around the customer and to build our digital transformations around that government customer. So whether it's a veteran or a farmer or a state or local resident, the customer is always front and center. And when you do that, you start to really identify it's all about improving services, integrating with legacy systems effectively, and providing ways to make data-driven decisions at all levels. And we're leaders in all three categories in terms of customer engagement center, integration platform, and analytics and BI.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Chris, thank you for joining me, and thank you to everyone listening to our podcast. To learn more, be sure to check out the Salesforce Public Sector Transformation Summit on Tuesday, May 25th. You can register at publicsectorsummit.com/register.